So let me introduce to you Sarah and Chris. So Sarah and Chris are in their mid to late 20s, no kids, and they've recently had a wedding and their honeymoon. Their next big rock in the jar that they want to achieve is to buy a house, but they're not sure if they have enough savings, how much they need to save, how long it's going to take them, and they're a little bit lost. So Sarah reached out to a friend who recommended them to download Moorr to help them with their financial direction. So Sarah jumped on the App Store, downloaded Moorr, and decided to set it up together with Chris over dinner. Now, the onboarding will guide Sarah and Chris in a number of financial questions to set up their initial numbers to give them a cash flow overview and a net position. So what you'll see is it will ask them what is their income, what are their assets. So it will ask them what is their bank account balance, how much savings do they have any investments. It will also ask for their borrowing figures, if there are any debt, income, and their expenditure. So the idea of going through the onboarding to set up Moorr, the outcome will be you are provided with a cash flow overview and a net position breakdown. So Sarah and Chris are really focusing on their cash flow overview. By entering in their income and their expenses, they want to know how much they can potentially save. Currently, their net position, they don't have too much debt, so it's not a high focus for Sarah and Chris, but that's always there should they have property and debt that they want to keep an eye on also. So let's see if we can dive a little bit deeper into Sarah and Chris. So as I mentioned before, they are in their mid to late 20s. This is an image of their big rocks in the jar. They have recently achieved their wedding, their honeymoon, and the next big rock that they want is to purchase a house. They are interested in the next 5 years or so to also see if they can start planning for a family, have their first child. So what I want to do is I want to show you how Sarah and Chris are using the tools and Moorr so they can unpack their goals and vision, see if their goals are realistic and achievable, and make a plan on how they want to achieve it. So let's go over to Moorr. Now I'm showing you Moorr, the web version. Moorr is available in a mobile app and a web version. You have access to your account on both interfaces. There will be a slight change between which features are available in which, mainly due to space and convenience. So on-the-go features will be heavily produced in the mobile app, whereas deep dive insights will be more inclined to be released in the web version. So the first thing that I want to go through with Chris and Sarah whilst they are trying to understand their direction is the discovery page. So whilst they're sitting down at their dinner trying to work out what's next, what are the big rocks in the jar, what are they trying to achieve, and what's their vision, this is a really helpful tool for them to kind of get on the same page. So the big rocks in the jar table is a list of potential milestones that normally occur throughout a life cycle. And you can have a look at the time periods next to it. So it's really good to have a look at what is happening now for Chris and Sarah. They are wanting to save that first deposit. That's ready now for them. That's what they want to focus on. They don't have much in the happening soon. However, the next big rock for them is they want to buy that first home. Now they've put short term, so they want to try to purchase that within the next 5 years or so. You can also see the next big rock will be to start a family also within that 5-year period. And of course, when you start a family, there's always going to be additional costs that come along with that. Now, during this journey, when you are looking at what are your next big rocks, there's always going to be some compromise. Some things will get pushed onto the back burner. And in Sarah and Chris's case, they've pushed back money for a holiday. That may not be as important to them whilst they are focusing on their home. That may be delayed a year or two, depending on how much they want this first home. They've also put it not applicable to build the next home or property. They don't have that yet. And they don't seem to have too many debts to pay down. So, really good to know as you're going through setting up your vision and your big rocks in the jar, which one comes first? Which one is not applicable just yet? And it's always a helpful tool to come back to this every couple of years or so to see if it still aligns. Things do change. Now, the next thing that Sarah and Chris have gone through is what money means to you. It is really good to get in on the same page with your partner on what motivates you for with money. So, money is just a tool to help you design your lifestyle. It's usually not what you want to achieve, it is a tool to achieve your goals. So, in the case of Sarah and Chris, they want security, stability, freedom, happiness, and providing for a family. Now, going through this exercise, you can see how different some people can be in what motivates them to gain money. Now, finally, a quick one, just a plug for the quick money management quiz. Always fun to try this one, see what your score is, to see if there's any improvement. These are just little habits that may help you in improving your money management. If you are looking to save more, to focus on keeping it front of mind, you may pick up some little habits here that you might want to take into account to see if you can raise your score. So, Sarah and Chris have unpacked their vision. They really want this house. So, the big question from that is the goal realistic and achievable? Let's have a look at the numbers. So, the dashboard is an overview of Sarah and Chris's financial situation. Now, all of that data that is showing here is pulled from the financial cards that Sarah and Chris have entered into Moorr. As you can see, the assets, borrowings, income, and expenses will give you your cash flow position and your net position. So with assets, you can see Chris and Sarah have added in living and lifestyle bank account and a savings bank account. So it looks like their current savings is around $35,000. You can see that Sarah's got some shares, they've got their super, and they do share a car. Over into the borrowing side of things, they don't have too much debt as a household. They do have a credit card that they are leveraging, which does have an auto sweep turned on. So it looks like that is getting auto paid from the savings account every month. Coming over into income, Chris and Sarah both on similar income. Chris is on 84 PYAG. Sarah is on 85,000 PYAG. So our income total of about $169,000 per year. So it's a healthy income. Coming over to expenses, so Chris and Sarah have sat down and unpacked all the expenses that they plan to spend on, and created a card for each of those for them to be able to get to the monthly expected figure of $8,500 per month. Now, this can take a little bit of time to do. However, it's really beneficial to understand what are you planning to spend over the next 12 months. Good thing to see is they have archived their wedding expense. So they had their wedding back in January. That is no longer something that they're saving towards. So this card has been closed. And we can see that this has freed up some of their cash flow because they're no longer putting money towards their wedding. So that's a good thing to see, and it has increased their surplus by decreasing their spending. So all the data that is entered into the My Financials will go into the home dashboard and give you some overview summary. So let's break down their cash flow and what their expected surplus should be and what is their potential savings ability. So Sarah and Chris are both on very similar incomes, so 85, 84. They don't have any other types of income, although Sarah does have 65 for most shares. We can see that they're not doing salary sacrifice, no tax deductions. You can see the amount of tax that is estimated that they will pay. So we are looking at a potential total net income of 65,000 and 64,000. Going down into their expenditure, what you can see is They're looking at about $3,800 per month in bill payments, $4,700 per month in spending. So that gives us that total of $8,523 that we saw earlier. Now, putting those two together, what we are finding is Sarah and Chris have the ability to save up to $2,200 per month. This then totals the $27,000 per year. So that means the good thing is that they are spending less than they're earning, and they have the capabilities to save money. So the big question is, how much do we need, and how long will it take us to save up what we need? Now, Chris and Sarah have reached out to a mortgage broker to ask for some initial numbers. Their purchase price that they are wanting to achieve is $620,000, which gives the total cost of purchase $628,000. That includes stamp duties and registration, etc. They've reached out to the lender. The lender will lend them up to $540,000, which includes lender's mortgage insurance. So they do incur lender's mortgage insurance because the LVR is higher than 80%. So the loan that is total available for the purchase is $534,000, which means that Sarah and Chris need to come up with $93,000 shortfall. Now, looking at their current savings, they do have $35,000 currently, which means that they need to find an additional savings target of $58,000. Now, coming back into Moorr, with their yearly target of $27,000, if they spend what they say they're going to spend, it is most likely that they're not going to be able to achieve purchasing this house within the 3 months or 12 months. So keeping that on the short term is more realistic, considering their current numbers. Now, Sarah and Chris have decided that they want to see if they can try to save money for the property over the next 2-year periods. So what they have decided to get the $58,000, what they want to do is save $25,000 this year and then the $35,000 next year. Now, if they do not change what they are currently spending money on, they will be able to hit this year's target very easily. Now, next year, they want to try to save an additional $35,000. Now, if they spend what they say they're going to spend, they're not going to be able to hit that target. So they may have to rework some numbers and see where they can save on and what they can do. So let me introduce to you Money Stretch. So under our money tools, we have a tool called Money Stretch. Now, I personally like to use Money Stretch regularly for any big decisions that I have that are going to affect my money situation. So a bit of an overview of what Money Stretch is. It is a sandpit environment where it calculates what your money in is, how much money you currently have available. You can see that $35,000 there, and your money out. So they don't have too many outgoings outside of their bills and spending. And you can see what their total surplus is, that $2,200 a month, which is that $27,000 surplus. So the way that Money Stretch works is it adds in what is your current money available, and then it adds in your total surplus or your deficit for each month and shows you visually where you could be in the next 3 to 4 to 37 months. This is really helpful in the case of, let's say, for example, Sarah wants to leave her job. You can see that they've just reduced their household income by 50%. So you can see if they spend the way that they are going to continue to spend, they may run out of money pretty quickly. So it's really helpful to play around with this to see if you want to reduce your income, do a career change, take a sabbatical, or even if you're expecting some large changes to your expenditure. But let's break this down for Sarah and Chris. So Sarah and Chris want to see if they're able to save an additional $35,000 in year 2. So what we want to do is we want to see if we can increase their monthly surplus to 2,900. So their current surplus is 2,200. We're going to have to tweak some of those numbers to see if we can get that to 2,900, which is the $35,000. So breaking this down into bill payments and spendings, what is really helpful here is a really good exercise is to, when you're setting up your expenses, to really understand what essential and discretionary are. Essential are costs that they're essential to your living. They need to happen, like your rent. Discretionary might be when you go to the grocery store and you add in an extra tub of ice cream or something that isn't necessary as part of your living. It's a nice to have, it's a treat. Or digital subscriptions like your KO, that's a discretionary. You don't need that as part of your everyday living. So it's really healthy to have a look at what is essential, what is discretionary, and break those down. What we normally find in bill payments, not many will be discretionary. It's not easy for you to pay half of your rent and say the rest is discretionary. It is a bill. It is what you're contracted to pay normally. However, spending is where you can really unpack what you have to spend and what you want to spend. So it's really healthy to have a look at the difference between those two. So let's see if we can have a look for Chris and Sarah. Now, when we went through the discovery phase, Chris and Sarah decided that holidays may take a back burner for them. So every year they have budgeted $6,000 per year towards their holiday. Now, what I'm going to do is remove the discretionary $5,500 that they had allocated to their holidays. I'm going to keep them $500. They can do a weekend away or have a day trip somewhere. We want to look at lifestyle balance. We don't want to cut everything. We still want to enjoy, Chris and Sarah still want to enjoy their life. So remove that additional $5,500 from their budget. And the ones that I normally like to look out for, which is where people really overspend, is your dining out, your takeaway food, your Uber Eats. So Chris and Sarah have put in 120 plus 50 per week, so about $170 towards Uber Eats or dining out or takeaway. What I'm going to do is just remove the $50 of discretionary spending. They can keep the 120. That's per week. They're able to go out once a week or order in once a week or just get some takeaway food. But I'm just going to remove the $50 per week to see if we can shave off somewhere else. The next one that people normally do overspend on can be your alcohol, tobacco. So what I'm going to do is just remove the $30 from discretionary. I'm going to keep the $50 there. We're not going to go completely empty because we want to be as realistic as possible with your budgeted figures. If you're going to cut everything, but then you're not going to stick to it, it can have more of a detrimental effect. So I'm only going to change those three figures, the holiday, the dining out, alcohol. And what I've been able to do is find them potential surplus of $3,099 per month, which is actually $37,000 per year. So well within their savings ability. Sarah and Chris can now find their peace of mind. They now know that the savings goal is possible. I want to take you to how they want to make a plan. Now, before I do, they can publish these changes. Now, for Chris and Sarah, they're not planning on making these changes until the second year of their savings. So if you were to use this tool and you decide that, yep, as of today, I want to make these changes, you're able to click publish changes, which will then update your current expenses. In this case here, I will not, as Chris and Sarah will not be changing these until the second year of their savings. Okay, so let me introduce you to the My Goals page. So Sarah and Chris have decided on setting themselves very smart, measured goals with a due date to keep them accountable to their big, hairy, audacious goal. So this is the My Goals page where you can set any new goal that you have, it is organized chronologically, so you can see that in a bit of a timeline. Now, Chris and Sarah have color-coded all of their goals for their home deposit to green. They've put the icon as the home, and they've updated their balance for every quarter of where it should be, all the way to the 95,000 of what the end goal is. Now, they should be able to achieve this in end of December of 2025, start of January 2026. So in 2 years' time, they should be able to achieve those savings targets. So if they spend what they say they're going to spend, we've been able to unpack that it is possible, it is achievable, but now they need to get cracking on it and keep themselves accountable. The My Goals will notify them on the mobile app every time a goal is due that month, just so it keeps it fresh of mind. And when Chris and Sarah have achieved that, they're able to mark this goal as achieved and keep track of all of their timelines. Now, I'm going to unachieve this because they haven't achieved that just yet, but it's really helpful to unpack your goals and then for Chris and Sarah, put in targets in their timeline where they can make them actionable and very clear targeted. So what I've been able to show you so far in Moorr is how Chris and Sarah have been able to unpack their goals and vision, see if their goals are realistic and achievable, and then make a plan on how they plan to achieve it. So hopefully that's been really helpful.